The outbreak of COVID-19 has had an extraordinary impact on the global economy and triggered widespread social upheaval. Worldwide, clients, investors, analysts, market watchers, and citizens are grappling with uncertainty and in need of insight to guide their decision-making. Starting this week, the Aga Khan Economic Planning Board for the United Kingdom is launching a series of pre-recorded webinars, Managing Through Disruption. Designed to help answer the questions that matter, we discuss the impact that COVID-19 has had on Jamaati businesses, self-employed, and landlords. Jamaati members share their experiences and their unique perspectives on the outbreak's effects and how they are repositioning their businesses for the future. These recordings are available on the.ismaili. You are watching Managing Through Disruption, Positioning Your Business for the Recovery. On the panel, we have Al Malik, Managing Director of Remarkable Hotels UK Limited and Chairman of Oksana Hospitality. Jamil Mauji, Co-Chair of National Care Group, an adult specialist care provider. Fareen Meghani, FCA, Partner at Fairman Harris Chartered Accountants. Amin Merali, Director, Retail and Hospitality, Treats Foods Limited. This session is moderated by Hussein Sundaji, EPB Board Member, responsible for alliances.
On the retail side, I think people are going to be very, very wary. They're going to be very wary that, am I going to, for weeks, we go into supermarkets, we've got to keep 2 meters distance. That cannot go away overnight. Even if you lift the lockdown tomorrow, people are going to be wary using public transport. So, on the tubes, on the buses, they'll try and use cars more. It'll take a little bit of time for confidence to come back. And that is governed by what I think the government will do next, which is testing. If people are able to be tested to say, yes, either I've got it or haven't got it, or I'm positive, that is going to be the key, that how fast and how quick our recovery and business is going to return back to normal.
Thanks, Amin. Jamil?
Yes, I think, my view is there's going to be a change in behavior, definitely, as Amin has highlighted. Our particular business in the care sector will probably not change significantly. I think there'll be more focus from government on social care, given what's happened to date and the learnings we will take away. I do believe that there will be repositioning of certain businesses, as we talked about, as Al mentioned earlier, using hotels with an alternative use for other reasons or whatnot. I think that you will see a change in spending habits for a while, and people, how they spend their money and what they spend it on. So I think things will get back to normal, and I'm not crystal ball to tell you if it'll take 12 months, 18 months, or 2 years, but it's definitely not 6 months. So I think we need to be looking at it that way.
Fareen?
Yeah, I think in terms of our business, we will eventually see ourselves return to normal. It won't be immediate. It'll take time for people to regain confidence and investment in the marketplace. Initially, some pent-up demand, and we'll see a surge in things, and then there'll be a slow and steady market trend. I do believe, though, eventually we will make it back to normality. There'll be some changes in working patterns and changes in the way people perceive things. I believe, though, that the economy itself will eventually get back to where we are today.
And Al?
I think a lot of the things that we have in place today are going to stay in place. For example, people aren't going to travel as much. They're going to continue doing these kind of teleconferencing or video conferencing for quite some time. We're not going to get over this psychological effect it's had on us as well, and the anxiety of just thinking that you could go out in a second and catch something. So I think, you know, the behavior, there's going to be a lot of behavioral changes, especially in travel and just going for meetings. Spending, people are going to be more frugal, more prudent, more careful about what they buy and what they don't buy. Casual purchases are going to go, you know, they're going to go down. And yeah, I don't think it's going to be a big change from where we are right now. I think, you know, we're going to have to keep, keep it in. It's going to be very close to what we're seeing right now. I don't think there's going to be a big change. We're still going to be very careful until we know that the virus is completely gone, and it's and possibly there's a vaccine. We are still in a very difficult situation.
I think it'll be sector specific and regional specific. So I think that London, I think, will be a little more rapid. I think that you'll have a good push from the government. I think they are going to do things as they did after other recessions to promote. I think that the more regional businesses will suffer a little more, especially maybe in the hotel businesses and some of the retail. I think that there will be spending issues around that. So it'll depend on it's sector specific. I do agree with Farine that some of the advisory businesses are definitely going to pick up very quickly after, because they're going to need the support. And I think they will be more of a steady state. Whereas I think you'll have retail will take a lot longer, even in London, for example, because of behavioral changes. So very sector specific. My concern is that it's more about spending habits, because what drives most economies is the spending habits of its population. And if spending habits you've had and there is pent up demand, as we talked about, but there's a lot of pent up demand that cannot be used. So I think so. We as a community need to look at which sectors we think are going to be strong. I think you sent out, Hussein, a McKinsey report, which I read through last night, and some of the best companies that survived during this process took hard decisions. And I'm not suggesting we do that, people do that, but they took decisions of selling assets at values that were maybe much higher pre this issue, selling assets at a cheap price, so they have the liquidity available to buy assets on the downturn. So that's just an example of people repositioning themselves. So where we have areas where we know there are going to be problems, maybe it is a thing to look at. I'm not suggesting people go and fire sell their assets today, but it's just to think about the future, about which sectors are going to take off, which are going to be steady. And that's how I would look at it.
Thank you. Amin?
So we still have the issue of Brexit. We don't know what's going to happen in that front as well. That's been thrown under the carpet. So a lot of factors, what the government is going to do and what's going to happen is how we're going to determine things. If we, once this is over and the government then decides to pump in a lot of money into different sectors to make ourselves more independent. And I think countries worldwide will do this now. Look what's happening to masks, ventilators, people are grabbing them. So I think we have to wait and see what the government does and take the opportunities from there.
Okay, thanks, Amin. Al?
Oh, okay, so I think business travel is going to be the last to come back. It's going to take quite some time. But as I said previously, people are going to continue video conferencing for now. Domestic leisure will come back, and that could come back. That could be part of the pent up desire for people to get out and about again and stuff. But I think it still will only be sort of major tourist cities like London, York, Edinburgh, Oxford, Cambridge. I don't think the secondary cities will benefit that well from that. Places like myself, Nottingham, I don't think it's going to be a big tourist place where people want to come back. Group travel also is going to be very slow. I don't think you're going to see big groups doing stuff together again. Conferences and meetings and events, this is all related to hospitality. That's going to take a long time to come back. So that's my view on it. It's going to be very slow, apart from domestic leisure?
I think it's going to be a slow and steady race. I think it's going to be a very gradual recovery, and I think it's going to be very slow and steady. I think there are possibly some opportunities for people to seize. Immediately, what comes to mind is if less people are traveling internationally, there are opportunities for local travel providers to provide a different service, an enhanced service, to encourage people to them while they're not traveling internationally. I think there will be opportunities in all markets. It's about finding them. It's about thinking outside the box and going slow and steady. It's going to take some time. Prepare yourselves for it, financially and otherwise, but we'll get there. And I believe the economy will get back to where it is or where it was yesterday as opposed to today.
You've kind of almost frozen your businesses, where you've turned off your power, you've cleaned out your fridges, you've furloughed staff, you've deferred rents where you can, and you have a rates holiday, but you've also frozen a cost structure as it sits. You're anticipating to come out of this in a gradual way, in a period of constrained demand. So what actions are you taking to try to flex your cost structure to match the revenue base when it comes out of this, if it is going to be slow and gradual? How will you manage that? And what are you doing now to work on those plans?
I think we got to be very careful at the moment. We have a lot of help from the government, and it's a false sort of sense of security. Once this is lifted, we got to analyze ourselves. So what I mean by that, we've furloughed our staff. We don't have those costs. We don't have rates costs, etc. But once that is lifted, and let's say it's lifted in 3 months, and it's early June, you suddenly now have all these employees back on your payroll. We have all the bills coming in, all the direct debits stepping in. So I would say advice to business leaders or business operators is to really think. Imagine that you had to pay that tomorrow. What would you do? What would you cut? Do you have a very big top-tier management system? Do you need all the people there? Because that's fundamentally the highest cost. So I would take this time and review and say that, pretend that these measures are not in, it's lifted now. Let's get on with it, and let's see where we stand. I'll do a cash flow forecast from there onwards.
For me personally, and I'm looking at the hotel industry, and as you rightly said, demand is going to be constrained hugely. So I'm just trying to change my mindset completely in terms of, what kind of business I am, what kind of business is going to be there for me in the next 2 years, and do I completely look at my asset and repurpose it for another type of business, or do I decide for the next 2 years to be a homeless organization, taking asylum seekers, homelessness, or NHS patients recovering from corona? So I'm looking at that, or possibly turning it into a training center for apprentices, because I historically did quite a lot of apprenticeship business at that place. Maybe I convert the whole place into an apprentice training center. So it's looking at repurposing and pivoting. So I will pivot for the next 2 years to a different type of business, and hopefully once there's recovery, and opinion is that it's coming back in 2023, pivot back to being a 4-star hotel.
So I think things are going to change from retailing. We can see now everyone's using the webinar. People are ordering on the internet. And that's what the key is going to be. If we see what's happening now, this is what one should do in retailing. So what I mean is, I'm in the catering business. We don't have a service where we have customers come in, they can pay for, if they wanted a coffee like Starbucks, they could come in, they could pay on the app and pick it up. This is going to be more prevalent going future. Any retail business, I think, should have an online presence. This is the growth. And this is what I'm thinking about. What can I do? From my perspective, saying, okay, do they want deliveries? Can I get Uber Eats out there? Can I have a dark kitchen? So I think these are the trends that are going to emerge in future. It's not the traditional business we're thinking of. That's, I think, on a downward spiral.
I think if you truly believe there's a huge gap for the market you're in, and there's going to be a significant time before that comes back, then consider lifelong learning, consider taking on a course, requalifying, use the time you have now to do some of the free courses that are being offered, see what other services you might be able to offer somebody to get yourself through this gap. There are things we can all change in the way we do things. And I think the other thing is about user experience. I think it's something we all know in our own businesses. We need to think about how we're perceived in the industry, what experience our customers and clients are getting. And it's an opportunity to spend some time on that and do some work on that to make it better, so that when our customers and clients walk back into our business, the experience is that much greater, and therefore we all benefit from that.
So we talked about repositioning hotels, for example. Now, I did some digging over and some research over the last 24 hours around this, and you can reposition your business to temporary housing, social housing, and there are many ways to do that. So, for example, you can go directly to the local authority, which I think a lot of our hoteliers are doing. The other option you can do is go to registered providers. These are individual, non-profit, regulated, registered social landlords who have daily dialogue before the crisis with local authorities, and they already know how the local authority works. So you're not having to rebuild the bridges, and you'd have a great partner for the short term, but you'd also have a great partner coming out of it. So I think there are different ways to look at it. I've been very industry specific in my answer, because I think that there is an opportunity there for our brothers and sisters in that sector who have hotels who may not be the Shangri-Las in London, because you cannot reposition a Shangri-La to do temporary housing. The cost base of that on an open day basis doesn't work. But if you have a business that's a 3-4 star hotel in a different region, if you approach a regulated provider, everyone's going directly to local authorities and having to rebuild these relationships. There are already people who have the relationships, who know how it works, and they're registered providers and charities who are looking to temporarily house. So let's be a little more creative around, so I would use this time to build those relationships now. People are looking for help. You know, you might say, okay, I'll give you 1 month rent free, but they'll take it and you'll get it. So there are ways to, and I've been very specific in my answer, but that was what I was trying to help. So network yourself across as much as you can.
People shouldn't forget that the job retention scheme has actually only been confirmed until the end of May. So whilst a lot of us expect that to be extended, the take-up has been 3 times as much as what they expected it to be taken up as. So there is a distinct possibility that, you know, come June, we will have very different considerations to make. I think in the short term, cash is king, and people need to recognize that, and they need to make sure they're prepared for that. But I think if you are finding yourself with a lower than the normal workload from your trading business, it's a chance to support your team, be there for them, show them that you're there for them, and that includes those that you furloughed. Be there for your clients and your customers, support them, stay in touch with them, work on your pipeline, network with other people in your industry. You know, working together, you might be able to find economies of scale. You might be able to leverage opportunities between each other. It's a chance to put all those things into practice that you know are at the bottom of your to-do list and you don't quite get to. Cleanse your database, look at your strategies for the future, look at your 10-year plan, do those things you never get time to do, because they could really be the way in which you see some opportunity that you otherwise wouldn't have had the chance to do.
So first thing on a very practical level is get your 2019-2020 accounts done as quickly as possible. Get all your, get your management accounts done, and then get your annual accounts done, because you're going to be wanting to talk to the banks to restructure your financial situation, your finances, and just get that all out of the way. And any other So, you know, we have some buy-to-let properties as well. So I'm going to get all those accounts done and ready, all the paperwork done to submit. I don't usually do it till November, December, but I'm going to get it done now, out of the way, so that then the next few months I can just be concentrating on the businesses at hand. I think, what else is there? I mean, we really need to seriously sit down and think about what will happen if we don't continuously get this support from the government on the furlough staff. That's, I mean, it's actually just hearing Farin mention that, just it's shaken me that by the end of May, actually we might be in a position where we might have to be terminating so many of our employees, maybe all of them.
There's huge opportunity in our sector because obviously there's a lot of beds that are filled within the NHS where individuals need to leave and to unblock the NHS beds before the crisis, forget the current crisis. So, and that continues. The biggest issue in our business has always been staffing. So I do believe that this crisis will probably be the largest mass movement of people into social care from a staffing point of view. So a little bit of positivity will come out of it because it is a skilled business and it's a vocation, so you can grow within it. So I do think that opportunity was there and will continue to be there, and it's a sector that can be run with a lot of different skill sets within it that allow you to, if you've been in retail, if you've been in a hotel business, there are things that you have learned in that sector that you can use. Obviously, we're more regulated, but that regulation can be learned and taught, and you can also hire people to support you. So I think that my specific area of business will continue to grow, and there's demand. Hopefully the government will now notice it and take away some of the social crisis that's happening in terms of funding, but that I think will happen.
I think there will be opportunities, but one has to wait and see. In the retail industry, there'll be a lot of casualties in the catering industry, especially in the casual dining. That may lead to an opportunity because at the moment, if there are too many brands out there, they're cannibalizing sales. You know, we've seen so many brands going down now. Latest one is Carluccio's, etc. So depending on the sector, on the retail, there will be opportunities. There will be, I guess landlords are going to be more lenient trying to let you premises. So you can do deals with them, you know, rent freeze, capital contributions, etc. That doesn't mean you jump at it. Due diligence, you do it once, you do it twice, do it several times before you jump into it, but you'll be able to have those opportunities where you possibly couldn't have it before. So I think on the sector, depending on what happens and where we come out in a few weeks' time, hopefully, we can then take a view as to see what we can do. But definitely there'll be landlords there willing to talk to you to let for them to be able to rent your premises.
You know, for some of us, who especially in the hotel game, who know how to run hotels and know how to understand how to run hotels, is to possibly contact your banks, contact the accountants, the big firms around who might need you later on to help administrate hotels that are going into administration and stuff like that, and maybe do some hotel management for other people. So look at other ways of bringing in money into your business and stuff like that.
So I think in professional services, we'll see a lot more people being able to work remotely and use technology a lot more. It'll be an opportunity for us to give our staff a better balance of life and offer them a better use of technology, because we've been forced into that situation now. What I hope comes out of it is that our clients and the people around us appreciate the value of an advisor that cares about their business and is able to give them business advice over just simply running numbers or running legal contracts, but actually can advise them and help them and be there for them and cares about them. And I hope that the professional services industry benefits from that, and those that are providing those services now and standing by their clients, I hope that they will reap the reward on the other end.
everything and anything will be subject to renegotiation once things pick up again. And in the hospitality game, you know, this will completely change the contract landscape between management agreements, franchise agreements, lease agreements with landlords. So all this will change. And I think in the future, everybody will have to push together to make sure that the risk is spread more equally between all the different parties that are involved in the hotel stack.
We do have a large population centers in the UK, and we're a very resilient economy. We may not have the purchasing power of the United States, you know, with a population of 300 million, but things will come back. And I think people have to see that this is not the end of my business. This is not completely. Yes, if you are in a business that may be dying, maybe you need to reposition yourself. But if you have the ability to get through 1 or 2 years, and we've all done it, we've all worked hard and struggled. We just have to go back to those fundamentals. But we will get through this. I think people need to see there is a light at the end. We just don't see it right now. But I think it's important that we don't just quickly just give up on our businesses and say I have to. And I don't think anyone's suggesting that. But we also need to say that I have 2 years of hard work or struggle, but I am going to get it back. And so we need to look at that. So I think we have been very prudent in the way we've discussed today, but I also think that we should be looking at 2 years down the road when it does come back. And I think the webinar has been really good at talking about that.